January 7, 2026, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, North Atlantic Ocean, 190 miles south of Iceland. Navy SEALs just seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker. 2 weeks of pursuit. One dramatic helicopter assault. The Marinera is now in U.S. custody. This is the story. Military Corps breaks it down. The tanker tried to run. It failed. Let's go back to where this started. December 20th, 2025. Caribbean Sea. U.S. Coast Guard cutter Monroe spots a vessel. The Bella 1. Sanctioned tanker. Venezuelan oil on board. Orders to stop and prepare for boarding. The crew refuses. The ship turns. Full speed northeast across the Atlantic. A chase begins that spans 5,000 nautical miles. The vessel wasn't alone in running. Intelligence reports confirmed the ship was heading to Venezuela, violating U.S. sanctions imposed in 2024 for smuggling cargo linked to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Hezbollah. This wasn't just oil smuggling. This was funding terrorism. The U.S. Coast Guard stayed on its tail, through storms, through darkness. The USCGC Monroe tracked every movement. Days turned into weeks. The tanker kept moving. Then it got creative. Mid-pursuit, the crew painted a massive Russian flag on the hull, changed the ship's name from Bella 1 to Marinera, re-registered under Russian registry, a desperate move to claim protection from Moscow. Russia noticed. According to military sources, Russian naval assets moved into position. A submarine was deployed. Surface vessels shadowed the area. Moscow filed a diplomatic protest demanding the U.S. stop the pursuit. Washington ignored it. But here's the tactical situation. Military Corps wants you to understand, this wasn't just a chase anymore. This became a geopolitical standoff at sea. U.S. forces versus Russian protection claims. International waters. No territorial boundaries. Just competing jurisdictions. The Marinera kept sailing north, past the UK coast. US P-8A Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft launched from RAF Mildenhall in England. 2 aircraft, constant surveillance, eyes on the target 24/7. UK Ministry of Defence confirmed they provided operational support, pre-planned coordination. Britain wanted this ship stopped too. The vessel had turned off its transponders multiple times. Classic evasion tactics used by shadow fleet operations. Here's where it gets interesting. Who wins this standoff? A. U.S. Navy SEALs. B. Russian submarine escort. C. Neither diplomatic solution? Comment your answer. Military Corps tracks what you think. By January 6th, the situation reached critical mass. The Marinera was between Iceland and Britain. Russian vessels were reportedly in the vicinity. The submarine was close, but not close enough. Early morning, January 7th, pre-dawn darkness. U.S. forces launched the operation. Navy SEALs, flown in by 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers. Black Hawk helicopters cut through fog and darkness. 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Helicopters descend. SEALs fast rope onto the deck. The boarding happened fast. Russian state media RT published footage showing a U.S. helicopter hovering near the ship. Coast Guard vessel visible in the distance through heavy fog. Russian Transport Ministry reported they lost contact with the Marinera at 7 a.m. U.S. European Command confirmed the seizure minutes later on social media. The motor vessel Bella 1 seized in the North Atlantic pursuant to warrant issued by U.S. federal court. Where were the Russian vessels during the actual boarding? Sources say they were in the area, but they didn't intervene. They watched. No engagement, no confrontation. The Americans got there first. Wait, just confirmed. U.S. forces simultaneously seized a second tanker, the MT Sophia, Caribbean Sea. Pre-dawn operation, same time frame. Coordinated dual seizures thousands of miles apart. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem posted the news. Back-to-back meticulously coordinated boarding of 2 Ghost Fleet tanker ships. The Sophia was stateless, operating near Caribbean international waters. also linked to Venezuelan sanctioned oil trade. This is next-level enforcement. 2 operations, 2 oceans, executed simultaneously. Military Corps has to break down what this means. The Sofia had been conducting ship-to-ship transfers in dark operations, loaded approximately 2 million barrels of crude oil from Venezuela in August 2025. Transferred the cargo offshore Malaysia through dark STS transfers. Beyond sanctioned Venezuelan crude, intelligence linked the Sofia to Iranian and Russian oil shipments to China, going back to 2021. These aren't just oil tankers, they're floating sanction violations. Shadow fleet vessels operating in the gray zone of international maritime law. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth made the U.S. position clear. The blockade of sanctioned and illicit Venezuelan oil remains in full effect, anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. That's the key phrase. This operation sends a message far beyond 2 tankers. Russia's response came fast. Foreign Ministry statement condemned the seizure as violation of international maritime law. No state has the right to use force against vessels duly registered in jurisdictions of other states. They demanded humane treatment of crew members, Russian nationals believed to be on board. But here's the legal complexity military corps needs to explain. The Marinera was deemed stateless by U.S. authorities. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated the vessel was flying a false flag. False Panamanian flag initially, then Russian flag during pursuit. Under international maritime law, stateless vessels have no protection. They're essentially legal targets for interdiction. The U.S. federal court issued a seizure warrant based on sanctions violations. The operation was legal under U.S. law. Maritime lawyers told analysts that a vessel is essentially a floating island of the country whose flag it bears. But when you fly false flags, when you switch registration mid-pursuit, you lose that protection. The vessel's identity remained constant. Sanctioned, illegal cargo, criminal activity. Quiz time for military corps viewers. What's the maximum penalty for violating U.S. sanctions and refusing Coast Guard orders? A. 5 years prison. B. 10 years prison. C. 20 years prison. We'll give you the answer at the end. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the crew is under full investigation and criminal charges will be pursued against all culpable actors. Failure to obey Coast Guard orders, sanctions violations, possible terrorism-related charges given the Hezbollah connection. The crew will be brought to the United States. Justice Department confirmed prosecutions are moving forward. This isn't just a ship seizure. This is a criminal case that could set major precedents for shadow fleet operations. Strategic implications? This operation changes the maritime enforcement landscape. For years, sanctioned vessels operated with relative impunity. They'd turn off transponders, switch flags, use darkness and storms to evade detection, hide in legal gray zones. Not anymore. The U.S. just demonstrated it will pursue sanctioned vessels across oceans, through weeks-long chases, even when Russia claims protection, even in international waters far from U.S. territory. China's watching this closely. The shadow fleet isn't just Russian and Venezuelan. Chinese-owned vessels operate throughout these networks. If the U.S. is willing to seize a Russian-flagged tanker 190 miles from Iceland, what stops them from seizing Chinese-flagged vessels in the South China Sea? This is about more than oil. This is about asserting maritime dominance, about enforcing sanctions regardless of flag state, about sending a message to every dark fleet operator on the planet. Will this escalate tensions, justified enforcement, or maritime overreach? Comment J for justified, O for overreach. Military Corps wants your take. The operation also highlights special operations capabilities. Navy SEALs conducting helicopter assault boardings in the North Atlantic. Night Stalkers flying in conditions that ground most aircraft. Coast Guard cutters tracking targets for weeks through treacherous weather. The technical execution was flawless. P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft provided real-time intelligence. Multiple C-130J Hercules and U-28A Draco aircraft supported the operation. Aerial refueling tankers kept aircraft on station. The UK provided base access and surveillance coordination from RAF Mildenhall. This required multinational coordination, intelligence sharing, legal coordination between Justice Department and European Command, diplomatic clearances, weather assessment, Russian vessel tracking. Everything had to sync perfectly. One wrong move and this becomes an international incident. Russian submarine surfaces, confrontation at sea, potential shots fired. The operational risk was massive. But the Americans pulled it off. 0 casualties reported, both tankers secured, crews in custody, vessels being escorted to U.S. territory for legal proceedings. Defense Secretary Hegseth's statement wasn't just about these 2 ships, it was a declaration. Anywhere in the world. That's deterrence. That's signaling. Every sanctioned vessel operator now knows the U.S. will come after them. Geography doesn't matter. Flag doesn't matter. Russian protection claims don't matter. What happens to the ships themselves? The Marinera and Sofia will likely be seized permanently under civil asset forfeiture. The U.S. government will petition federal courts for ownership. If granted, the vessels could be sold, scrapped, or repurposed. The oil on board gets seized too. Billions in assets. The crew faces federal prosecution, criminal charges for sanctions violations, refusing lawful orders from Coast Guard, potential terrorism-related charges if prosecutors can prove knowing involvement with Hezbollah-linked operations. Sentences could reach decades. For Venezuela, this is devastating. The Shadow Fleet was Caracas's lifeline. With U.S. enforcing a complete maritime blockade, how does Venezuela export oil? How do they generate revenue? The economic pressure just increased dramatically. Russia's position is complicated. They claimed the Marinera, sent naval assets, filed diplomatic protests, then watched as American commandos seized the ship anyway. This undermines Russian claims of protecting vessels under their flag. If Moscow can't defend a ship they officially registered, what's the value of Russian registry? Answer to the quiz: C. 20 years in federal prison for sanctions violations and refusing Coast Guard orders. Multiple charges could mean consecutive sentences. The Marinera crew is facing serious time. 3 big questions Military Corps puts to you. Will Russia retaliate? How does this change Shadow Fleet operations globally? What vessel does the U.S. target next? This operation proves maritime power still matters. Naval supremacy still matters. The ability to project force anywhere on Earth's oceans still matters. 2 tankers, 2 operations, 2 decisive victories. The Marinera tried to run. It painted a Russian flag hoping for protection. It fled across 5,000 miles of ocean through storms and darkness. The crew thought they could outrun the U.S. Coast Guard. They were wrong. Military analysts predict this is just the beginning. Dozens of Shadow Fleet vessels operate globally. Venezuela relies on them. Iran relies on them. North Korea relies on them. They move sanctioned oil, fund terrorism, evade international law. Now they're all targets. The U.S. just demonstrated it has the capability and will to enforce sanctions anywhere. International waters, Russian flags, Chinese protection. None of it matters if you're violating U.S. law. Could this escalate to something bigger? Absolutely. Russia won't forget this. China is taking notes. Every Shadow Fleet operator is reassessing risk. But for now, the U.S. has sent an unmistakable message. Real maritime enforcement, real consequences, real coverage. That's what Military Corps delivers. If you want breaking military operations analyzed with tactical depth and strategic context, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Military Corps, where military operations become breaking news. Drop your predictions below. What happens next in this maritime showdown? The Marinera is in custody. The crew faces prosecution. 2 weeks of pursuit ended in one decisive operation. And somewhere in international waters, another Shadow Fleet tanker just turned on its transponder. Because it knows. The U.S. is watching, and the U.S. will come. Military Corps, real conflicts, real coverage, real consequences.